What's going on, everybody? Episode 3 of Oh My Lordi. Just wanted to let you guys know my coffee maker broke this morning, so I'm not having a good day. This is me on zero caffeine today. So we're gonna try and make it fun though. We're gonna talk about lead generation. All right, we're gonna talk about the journey of lead generation. We started kind of kicking things off, how we then ramped it up. And we're going to just talk about in general. Obviously, I'm probably talking to a lot of different businesses, maybe some agencies, maybe some just service-based businesses. But lead generation and follow-up are still key in any business. So we're going to make it relevant. Hopefully, again, I get you guys to think a little bit. Hopefully, I don't hurt anyone's feelings in this, because I think there's a lot of things that people don't do that, they need to pay attention to. But here we go. Oh My Lordi podcast. So, kind of kick things off. Obviously, we all have, a starting point with our businesses, and the first thing we need is leads, right? To really get customers and to grow. One of the first things that we did, number one, and I think it's probably the most important, not just in the beginning, but throughout, is shout from the rooftops. Shout from the rooftops, let everyone and anyone know what you do. So shout from the rooftops could mean literally go to a rooftop and shout about who you are and what you do. It could be, just walking around, maybe you're at the bar or a restaurant or a community event, whatever it is, and you're shaking hands and you're just telling people, right, what you do. Hey, I'm Tyler and I own a marketing agency. We help, these types of businesses. Hey, I'm Mark. I own a roofing business, right? We focus on commercial roofing, whatever it is. All right. Shout from the rooftops. It could be social media, right? It could be just, you're shouting from the rooftops is consistent posts, right? It could be, in groups. Hey, I'm so-and-so and I do so-and-so, right? Sorry, I'm fighting a cold as well. Again, we're not going to hold anything back. This is real. It's not scripted at all. I'm sure you guys can tell. But yeah, so shout from the rooftops, number one thing. And again, I think it can happen, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. You want to keep telling people, not just the same people, but new people, what you do, who you are, and what you do. Right. So shout from the rooftops was a big one. It's actually how we landed our first deal ever. I think I might have talked about it in a previous episode, but it's literally how we landed our first deal. We said, hey, we're on this journey. We started a new company and, we sold our website deal, our first website deal, I think, maybe a day or two later. And it was from that post. So super important. And it's just a great way to get out of your comfort zone. Right. And it's crazy. I think a lot of us can relate when people start new businesses. When we start businesses, you don't tend to get as much support as other avenues in life, but it's something that's going to help you get uncomfortable and get your name out there ultimately. So shout from the rooftops, definitely my number one. Number two, and this is kind of where we went to a couple of months, maybe like a month or two into our business, was cold calling, right? I think everyone should learn how to cold call. Everyone should cold call because it's super uncomfortable. I think some people are like natural at it, but I was terrified. And someone was like, hey, I went to an event. I remember we went to Vegas and the guy was like, hey, we're going to sit here and we're going to cold call like 100 businesses. And I was just like, what? So my wife and I were sitting there and we started the cold call. And all of a sudden we were looking to get yeses to a video we were going to send them. It was going to be like a marketing audit, right? And we got yes. And I'm like, oh, this is easy. I'm good at this. Then we got our first no and I'm like, oh man. But the repetition and then understanding, like leading with value, I think is what really made it easy. I think we all fear the no, but to be truthful, the more no's we get, the more yeses we're going to get, right? Or we're closer to that yes. All right. So I think as soon as you get over that fear of cold calling, it becomes easy. And I think, whether it's cold call or any type of lead generation, you want to lead with that value, so again, we were doing, like a free marketing audit. We were just calling up businesses like, hey, we shot this free video for you. It's going to give you a couple tips on how to do this, that, and the other thing. Can I send it over to you? What's your email and phone number? And, that's really all it was. It was super simple, to the point. I think, most of us are terrified of cold calling because, I'm sure a ton of our phones get bombarded with spam on a daily basis, and it's just nonsense. And, what do you do when you get a cold call? You hang up. So we're not going to go in depth here on, the ins and outs of cold calling. There's going to be things that work and things that don't work. You just have to find what works for you ultimately. And it's not just cold calling, that's everything. But I think if you're going to lead with value and you have good intentions behind it, it's going to be a no-brainer for you. It's going to be easy. I will say though, we don't do cold calling anymore, but it was one of those things that, as we went along in the process, and this was actually when we were part-time. So when we went to full-time, then kind of back was against the wall, we weren't sure how to pay our bills the next month. Like, I went back to cold calling. It's literally the first thing I did. I put a list together, I think of like 150 businesses. This is kind of a funny story, but 150 businesses. I made my first, I think 5 phone calls, sold 2 deals. And I was like, this is crazy. But like, I was just like, yeah, I'm not cold calling anymore. Like, that was worth it. I got my ROI. I should have just kept going, but I hated doing it. I really did. I hated doing it. So we got our first two deals, and then I moved on to another avenue that I'll jump into. But I think the point of that is, like, when your back's up against the wall and like you don't know where your next lead is coming from, don't wait around. All right, go get it. Right. So we can all cold call. I think in any industry, I don't care if it's service-based businesses, I don't care if it's marketing, I don't care what it is, you can cold call. Get a list together and cold call people. And again, it's just kind of another way of shouting from the rooftops. So don't spam people, but have, like I said, lead with that value. You'll be all right. So after I decided, like, man, I don't want to cold call anymore, one of our big focuses was Facebook and social media. And it was really, another form of shouting from the rooftops. We would join groups. And I'll just quickly talk about my process, but we would join Facebook groups in the typical, the specific industry we were after, which was car detailing. And we would friend request everybody. We would friend request everyone. So anyone that we saw that owned a car detailing business, or really just any business, we were friend requesting them. And, the simplest message to them was, hey, glad to connect. That was it. We said, hey, glad to connect. And we kept it simple, right? So, hey, glad to connect. And that was it. We left it, right? Then further down, we were like, oh, we'll build a Facebook group. And we would look back at all the people that we said, hey, glad to connect. And we would send them an invite to a Facebook group. Hey, we just started this Facebook group. It's around the business that you own. Like, come join. That's it. So lead with just an innocent, hey, glad to connect with you. Not spam, right? Some people would be like, hey, what do you want? Things like that. Always just looking for a business connection, because who's not going to like a business connection, right? And then, invite them to your world, into your Facebook group. And that's really where we poured on value. And then I really focused on the personal page as well. So just tons of value, personal posts, keeping it real and raw, just like this podcast, right? Just talking about my family, talking about, struggles, talking about how my coffee maker broke. It's driving me nuts. I got to go get a new one now. But just things like that actual human beings can relate to, is at the end of the day, we're all human beings, right? So that was really our process. So it went from cold calling to kind of cold outreach on Facebook. And we built up a community. We built up a group of people that we could then, again, provide value then to. So, hey, can we do a free marketing audit? Can we provide this for free? Whatever it was. And then we actually had real conversations and figured out the problems that people have. That's one of the biggest things with lead generation that I think businesses look past. All of the answers to your problems are right in front of you, right? Your customers will tell you. Your customers will tell you exactly what the problem is. You just now have to go solve it. You now have to create an offer good enough that they won't say no to, right? And solve it. I don't think we're going to really dive into pricing issues and all that, because I know that's a big objection and people struggle with. That's maybe a different episode. We're just going to talk about the lead generation side and the follow-up side, but you can kind of start to see some of the follow-up throughout this already, right? So we weren't necessarily following up, by inviting them to the group and then all that, but you can start to see it kind of trickle effect, right? So anyway, I kind of got off track there. We had them join the group. Like I said, we're doing the personal posts, talking about anything, and again, just providing value in business. So, right, the problems, right, are right in front of us. So the problems are always going to be, they're always going to bleed through the conversations that you have with people, right? They're always going to bleed through, and then you just have to take it and run with it. Can you come up with a solution good enough or big enough to solve their problem, right? A lot of businesses lack the understanding, I think, from a consumer perspective, although they're consumers too in other avenues. They lack that understanding, and they just want maybe a specific job, or they're not willing to meet that customer right where they're at. And I think that's a big problem in our lead generation. Again, maybe a different episode that we'll kind of dive into that, but it's important. It's important when you're doing lead generation. I think the biggest thing to understand, kind of going back to the cold calling, right? I was getting those yeses, and then I got no, and then I was getting no's, and then getting yeses. Like, it's a numbers game, 110%. Like, it's a numbers game. The more no's you get, the closer you are to that yes. So you just have to be consistent. Consistency is key with lead generation. And well, guess what? When something stops working, you just tweak it, right? And you move on to the next thing, or you just tweak it and refine it. But you have to stay consistent. There's truly, I don't know of many lead generation, methods where it's like you do it and it works right away. Right? You have to be consistent, especially when it comes to organic, especially when it comes to, building long term. Right? I still have people today from like years ago messaging me. Like, you can see the last message like on Facebook was like a year or two ago, inviting them to the group. And then now they're like, hey, can we hop on a call to discuss like what you can do for me? And, just that those seeds that you start to plant, they're so powerful. As long as you're genuine, like I said, as long as you're leading with value and you have that solution big enough to solve that problem, that's going to really be the driving force in your lead generation. So talked about to cold calling. That was, like I said, that was fun. Not really. But then we went into organic Facebook. And then, we even went into, strategic partnerships and things like that, where leads just came in natural. And like, I'm a big proponent of word of mouth. I'm a big proponent on referrals, like bar none. Like, it's the best way to grow a business. I think most people can agree. We almost never do paid ads. I think for the first 3 years in business, maybe 3.5 years, we never touched a paid ad. And, we've grown to where we are from that. Obviously, the demands of your business, you sometimes might want to add in paid ads, and it depends on your industry. That might be something you're leaning towards. Love paid ads, but that's just not the way we grew in the beginning. So I think, your lead generation has a time and a place, right? The methods that you're using. And it really just depends on where you're at in your business journey, right? If you're just starting out, I usually 9 times out of 10 don't recommend paid ads, right? Because you need to get down into the weeds, right? The nitty gritty, and figure out your process, figure out your solution, figure out, what makes people tick, and then how you can get them to close, obviously, to the service or that your service that you're offering, right? So I'm a big proponent in you as the owner of figuring that out, or at least having a dedicated person to figure that out, and then not making not duplicating it until it's duplicatable. I think that's where people struggle. And also, one of the big things, and I think I might have again touched on this in another episode, is just like comparing yourself. You see so many other businesses or people doing, it's so well at a top tier level, and we're like, oh well, they did it. Look, they're getting all of these results. Like, I can do it too. But then they don't understand the amount of calls they did, right? The amount of outreach they did, all the no's they got, all the rejection, all the negativity. They don't see that middle piece to get to where they are. And that's where a lot of people, miss the boat here. They don't understand that you have to go and grind it out, right? You see my hat here. The dream is free. The hustle is sold separately. I 100% believe that. The hustle is sold separately. You have to hustle. You have to grind it out. You have to fail 100%. In literally everything, especially in lead generation, you have to fail. So if you haven't failed, you're not working hard enough. And like, I catch myself in that, every once in a while. I think we're in a stage of business now where I'm like, man, I looked at my board last month, because I have a board here with like all my leads and closed deals and all that. And I was like, we were literally at, I think it was like 5 days left in the month of October. We were at 100% closing rate. I think we had closed like 8 jobs, which is like where we don't we don't usually go for more than like 10 a month. It's just a nice even anyway. So we were at 100% close rate, and I was like, man, I got a little comfortable. So I went out and I did, some additional cold outreach. I did some additional posts and different things and sent some emails. And then I had like 5 new people, and I was like, ooh, my closing rate's probably going to burst here. So, but I did everything I could. And I think we ended up with like an 85% close rate. But what I did was I was comfortable, but then I got out of that comfort zone, right? And I pushed myself even more, because let's be honest, like 100% close rate, it literally means you're not doing enough. So you want to make sure you're just pushing. You want to make sure you're pushing, whether it's you or you have an employee doing it or a team member, partner, whatever it is, you want to make sure you're pushing at all times, because lead generation is the lifeblood of your business, right? Without new business, you're going to eventually die, right? So you can argue, obviously, if you have a current customer base, you can upsell them, do all that. But we're just obviously talking about the lead generation aspect, right? So yeah, I'm not going to lie, guys. Like, again, none of this is scripted. So I have some notes that I'm going through. I think we've touched on a lot of good stuff as far as the lead generation side. We're going to shift over to probably a follow-up now. If you guys have questions, if you have comments, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to chat about them. Yeah, that's what keeps this going for sure. So follow-up. Anyway, follow-up is super important throughout the lead generation journey. I think it's actually probably more important, if not just as important, obviously, as the lead generation. Now, obviously, there's a ton of different industries, right? And the follow-up is going to be different. But after talking with so many businesses, I've been working with so many businesses, follow-up is probably like everyone's kryptonite, right? They just don't do it, or they suck at it, or they think they're going to not hurt someone's feelings, but like they think they're going to get a bad rep by following up. And here's my take on it. Like, whether it's, a lead from a referral, whatever it is, like if someone has interest in your business, they fill out a form, they make a phone call, whatever, text you, whatever it is, they're now, you have the right to get an answer from them. At least I think you have a right, especially if you pay for it, but you have a right to get an answer from them. So until they say no or F off even or anything like that, you should be following up with them. Now, if we want to get really into the nitty gritty, I like text messaging the first week, right? At least the first couple of days. Your cadence might be a little different, but I'm a big proponent of call, email, text, call, voicemail, email, text, call, email, text, right? At least for the first 3 days. Give a little break in the middle there at around day 4, 5, same thing, call, email, text, maybe do a voicemail again. Last day, I like, hey, like, have you given up on this? Right? Because people take that personally. So like, that's a quick cadence that like we follow and that I also recommend others follow. Again, super simple. It might change for you. And then lead them into like a longer term email campaign. So like an example might be, then you send them an email a week about all your different services or whatever they were interested in for like a whole month, maybe 2 months, and then send them into like a long-term email drip where it's like 1 a month, or something like that. So people are like, man, and we actually have some that we do, like we have an email every 3 days for a year. People are like, oh, that's a lot. But you know what? It's not a lot when these big companies do it, right? Like nobody gets angry at that. Or if they do, guess what? They're hitting unsubscribe. Like these people can hit stop in the text message. They can hit unsubscribe, right? You're not going to hurt anyone's feelings, right? Because they're, at the end of the day, they're not paying your bills. So this is why I'm saying like follow up is so important with lead generation, because if it's not a yes, they're not paying your bills, right? So, and if it's not a no, then you got to get one. Whether it's a yes or a no, you need to get one. So that's where I'm like, hey, you send them an email, send them a text, give them a call all day long, right? Until they give you that answer. I don't literally mean all day long. Don't call someone 10 times in a row. But again, there's a lot of different cadences that you can go through, with text, call, email, all of it. And there's obviously some messaging behind that we're not necessarily going to get into, but you want to be creative with it. You want to have fun with it. You want to have your brand bleed through it. I'll give you an example, like on Facebook, if someone hasn't responded to me or if they ghosted me, right? Like if you say like, oh, they ghosted you, I'll send a GIF of like, or a picture of a ghost, right? And people get it. Like, and it just lightens people up. And I usually get responses anytime I send a GIF, whether it's a ghost or a funny picture of like Will Ferrell or something, like anything like that. Like usually you'll get a response then. And people are like, no, man, sorry, I've been busy and all that. And because again, we're human beings. Life happens and I totally get it. Like just as long as I get an update, cool. I just want to see where we're at. Like, where do we go from here? Do I keep you in my follow-up? Like, are you just not interested anymore? Right. And that's where you want to get to, because, you know, when things slow down, you want to have that pipeline of leads to follow up with. Right. You get it all the time. Hey, we're slow this week. Cool. Did you follow up with the 300 leads you had from last month or whatever it was in your pipeline, 1,000 leads you have in your pipeline? Did you follow up with them? Do you know that all of them are yes or no? If not, you better get on the phone. You better call, you better text, you better email, find them on social media, right? Connect with them. Hey, glad to connect, right? All of a sudden something triggers. Oh yeah. I sent a quote request in, right? So anything that you can do to connect, to give value, to bridge the gap, that's what you want to do. So that's where follow-up meets lead generation. And I think we just get too comfortable, and we might say like, oh, well, I don't need their business. And you might not, but guess what? If you have, you know, your website or a paid ad or anything advertising for your business and someone sends a request in, guess what? They're interested. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, maybe not in a year, but sometime at some point they're interested. So they're going to either go to you or they're going to go to your competitor. And it all started because they saw you. So you can either keep them in your world, right? Or advertise for other companies, because that's really what you're doing, right? If you don't follow up, you have just advertised for other companies, because they will go somewhere else. So that's where I kind of like said in the beginning or earlier on, I was like, meet them where they're at. You need to meet them where they're at, whether they're ready to buy or not. Like, just meet them where they're at, create that relationship and keep them in your world, so to speak. So I think that's where throughout lead generation, throughout follow-up, a lot of businesses fail to create that relationship, and we just treat it as a lead, and we just like, we think they're maybe lesser than, you know, us because they haven't bought from us yet. Like, the relationship building doesn't start when they pay you. The relationship building starts when that form comes in, right? When that phone call comes in. Is the minute you say, hello, my name is X, you know, and I, you know, this is my business. That's the relationship building, because that's the first impression that they get. So, you know, that's probably the most important, but your follow-up, everything is just as important. So I hope I got my point across. I probably said the same thing 6 different ways, but that's really it with lead generation and follow-up. I mean, I think a lot of people will ask, well, how much is too much? And, you know, depending on what we're talking about, I don't think there's a number that you can put on follow-up, right? Like, I guess how much is too much? Like, don't send 100 messages a day, but like if you're following up once a day, you know, once a week, once a month, and you're consistent with whatever you do, it's not too much. So I hope this topic was helpful. I hope it changes people's thought process on lead generation, on follow-up. I hope you understand that you got to get out of your comfort zone. You have to grind it out. You have to go through the weeds. You got to fail, and you got to be consistent with not only your lead generation, but your follow-up. And listen, there's a lot of times where, you know, now that I kind of going through this episode, you know, off the cuff here, I'm like, man, I got to be more consistent, right? In both my lead generation and follow-up. So super important message. I'm glad I got to share a little bit about the journey to start. But again, if you guys have questions, comments, anything, drop them below and hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you soon.